That embodies like all of my favorite things about this style of music.
Yeah, they're so good, like unreasonably good.
I also absolutely adore the kind of like angular riffs that rhythmically are not as straightforward as you might think.
Yeah.
The stuff where it's like accenting the offbeats and where it's like syncopated, like that kind of stuff is really fun technically to just dig into and listen to. And when you're as much of a music nerd as we are, right? Like just getting into that and just sinking your teeth into it is so cool.
Oh yeah, back in the day when like metal memes were at their peak, it was like here's a gent stick. It's a 9-string guitar with only one string on it, and the first 2 frets work. And it really is like, I guess that is the gimmick. Oh, we love that guy. Like they'll ride like open chugs for the majority of a song, but it's so insane to me how they can make it sound different every time, because they'll do that in a lot of their music, and each song is still like an individual song. It's not like, wow, this sounds just like this other song. This sounds like just this other thing. It's like its own threshold of here's a cool pattern, but with crazy shit happening in the background.
I think it's very interesting because if you were to look at it written out as music, you wouldn't write this out as sheet music, but if you were to do that, it would be a lot of the same note in a row. Yeah. But it's like the rhythm, and then you get into like, you could do like accents and things like that, and just different ways that you attack the string in different positions, muted, not muted, muted a different way. Yeah. Just little things like that are what add the nuance to that. And I think it's an art in and of itself that a lot of people don't think about.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Less is more a lot of the time with metal. And I think a lot of bands don't really look at it like that. You like most deathcore. Well, that maybe it's genre for genre, but bands like we mentioned Lorna Shore earlier. Their less is more is in the terms of guitars. The guitars aren't doing really crazy stuff. Drums are going crazy. Vocals are going crazy. Bands like Slaughter to Prevail, same
and they
thing.
got like an orchestra.
Yeah, they have a massive orchestral arrangements behind everything. And then you have metal bands like, I mean, Pantera did some shitty stuff, obviously, but because they're from the South. And at a very, very racy time. Their songs...
Putting that behind us for a second.
Hiding the fact that they're vehement racists and pieces of shit. You can tell that their songs are like less is more for the most part. Domination is like 3 riffs, and everybody loves that song. Cowboys from Hell is like 3 riffs. It's like on a loop. It's like, that's all you need. Gojira's the same fucking way. Gojira's not technical for fucking any piece of the word technical, and they're just insane because they're just so good at like keeping your attention, and less is more in it.
The other thing that I find very interesting about this song is the use of the like almost ambient, super reverbed out like lead guitar parts.
Oh yeah, the droney stuff. Oof.
Because that droney stuff, I feel like, especially for this particular flavor of metal, is not quite as typical to the genre.
Yeah, it's definitely more of an emo thing.
Exactly. And it's really cool hearing that blend. Do you know at all if he or anybody else in the band have like had any sort of foray into making more ambient droney type stuff?
Yeah, so Nico was in, I mentioned a band called Harakiri, and that is a very super reverbed out and blown out, and like it's kind of more about clean stuff than it is about like riffing stuff. So he used to be all about that kind of stuff, especially when he was doing that.
I absolutely love the way that those two things go together.
Oh yeah,
because it's not something that a lot of people do, but I think that it's two great tastes that taste great together.
Yeah, I mean everybody loves Taking Back Sunday just as much as everybody loves Gojira. It's like, put them together.
Yeah, right.
For me, please, somebody, for me, just do it. And these guys happen to do it. I love it. It's just so big, too, because they're like recording with Will Putney, so it's like, it's going to be big. He is like the metal guy right now. And yeah, he makes everybody sound massive. Like Knocked Loose is recording with them right now. Like just all these bigger projects are going to Will Putney, so it's just always going to sound massive with like the little stuff you're doing. That's another band that does nothing and not technical at all, and they're just fucking huge.
I love that we've gotten into this because like getting into the theory of metal, quote unquote, it is really funny because you're talking about on the surface level the simplest shit on the planet, but then as you dig, there's more and more and more and more nuance.
Oh yeah,
and it's something that you can spend an eternity looking into, and there's still more stuff to unpack.
Even with that song, like you listen to it, and the first thing you hear is that massive fucking anvil hit on the snare, and it's like bands need to do that more. Give me more sounds. Everything just layers and piles up, especially in like the recording sense. I can almost imagine that Will Putney was like, it'd be fucking really cool right here for no reason. A massive anvil.
Let's just throw it. And that's the beauty of digital recording too, right? You've got as many tracks as you want. Just throw shit on there, layer as much as you want.
Fucking dogs barking somewhere. Who cares?
Right?
It'll sound cool.
I've got this recording that I found, and it's just a train whistle 2 miles away. Yeah, let's put it in before the breakdown. Why the hell not?
Reverse that shit, drown it out with a reverb, filter it a little bit. I'm sure that'll be the craziest pre-breakdown noise anybody's ever heard.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's all. Metal is like, as much as it's probably the least creative. I mean, other than maybe pop punk, which I love punk and stuff, but like the least creative genre in terms of where you can go with things. Mm-hmm. The production side is what will change anything. Like if there was any different vocalist on that, it'd be lame. If there was any different drummer on that, it'd be lame. And that goes for like every metal project. I feel like it's another Slipknot reference, but Joey Jordison like was pretty much Slipknot. And the second he was out, Slipknot stopped being like very rhythmically.
As far as songwriting is concerned, yeah.
Yeah, and now they're like way more melody. It's like every song that they've released since All Hope Is Gone came out, which I mean, like Dead Memories was that song on there that it took me a bit to kind of get into. Mm-hmm. But now every song feels like Dead Memories, where it's like, it's chilled out. It's what you can do when you don't have like the guy who was writing all the original bangers just not in it anymore.
Nobody just bangs on a beer keg anymore. When are we gonna bring that back?
Clown, calling you out, brother. Slam on that like 3 millimeter thick piece of steel for me. Right. Record it, or I'm gonna scream.
I think another thing that's interesting, you just mentioned like potential lack of creativity, and it's the creative people who rise to the forefront, obviously. Oh, yeah. But I think metal specifically is also interesting because there's so many labels for things.
Oh yeah.
And I think that can be part of what stifles creativity for a lot of people. Oh, yeah. Is they get too fixated on like, oh well, we're a post-hardcore band, and this is more of a more of a metalcore riff, or whatever. Yeah. And it's like I feel like a lot of people get put into boxes, and even though they do get put into boxes, the people who rise to the top are the ones who give less of a shit about the categorization.
Oh, for real. Like especially with Indigo North, I say it's post-emo because I had there's post-hardcore elements and there's emo elements in it. Yeah. But I feel like if you paid some like Harvard graduate who's like mastered in genre defining, he'd be like, no, it's this. And at the same point, I'd be like, that's fine. Like, I don't care. I've never taken a music lesson. Like, I didn't do any of that stuff. I just write what I think sounds cool, and hopefully other people like it.
Labels like that are important for marketing, but I think that's the only thing that they're important for.
For real.
Anybody who thinks about genre when they're thinking about songwriting is doing it wrong.
Yeah. You'll see that a lot
hot take, in maybe, but
you'll see that a lot in like the local music, because there's these bands when they start out, they're like, we want to be this. Like, we want to be a metal band. We want to do this. And what they end up finding out later on, like when it's too late, is that, wow, people really liked that clean part of your really heavy metal song more than every other part of your set. And then they're like, that's the part that they just like naturally just don't like, which is fine if you're doing it for yourself, but in the sense that you're really like, I want to grab people's attention, you need to, there's something in you that made you write that clean part. Do it for every fucking song. Just do it.
For me too, I think that it's also part of growing as an artist is imitating what you like. And the more you imitate what you like, the more you realize what you like and what parts are you. as an artist. And so I think that it's a lot about growth as well, because like a lot of the bands that you're talking about are usually typically pretty young.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's why, you know, a lot of bands don't hit until they're like mid 20s going on 30, somewhere around there, is because at that point you've grown as an artist and you've learned what you can do in the confines of your sound that's still creative.
Yeah, because you're still kicking at your boundaries at that point.
Exactly.
And there is obvious examples where people really like, they'll go too far out of it and get like shit on. But it's like, at that point, who fucking cares? Like, Bring Me the Horizon is such a good example of that. They went from being like fucking deathcore to like metalcore to like whatever the fuck they are now. And I like it. I like it more now than I ever did. And I think it's because they like it more now. They're not just trying to do what's popular. Like, they're like, we don't care.
They are so creative when it comes to stuff. Like Amo, the poppiest record that they've ever made. And I absolutely adore that record as much as I do Sempiternal.
Yeah.
For completely different reasons. But because they enjoyed making it and it's what they made, and that, yeah.
No, I feel that entirely. I think for people who are in local bands, if you ever want to start a band, understand up front that you're going to sound like a local band. And people will say, yeah, they're a local band. But like, don't let that discourage you. You're always going to sound like, yeah, like it doesn't matter. You sound like a local band because you're a local band. Like, but the first few songs you write are always going to sound different than the next ones, and then after that, you'll understand the concept for writing more rhythmic shit, and that goes for every genre. And then you get to the point where you're like, I now know how to write a song, as opposed to here's a bunch of riffs glued together. And a lot of people need to stop worrying about like, here's a metal riff that I put next to a metal riff, and be like, here's a riff that sounds really cool next to this one because I wrote it to flow into something else. So any local bands trying to start up, focus more on the flow of your stuff and not how cool that really gnarly sweep riff that you just learned how to play is. Because down the line, like, you're still going to be able to be like, oh, I fucking love that shit, but it's really going to be.
Put that in your back pocket. Maybe that's for a different song. It doesn't have to be for this one.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, that's a really cool breakdown that you want to add to this song, but I think like, you'll be able to tell right away if somebody's trying to force a section on you.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, it's so clear every time, but hey, man, write how you write. I just think it's more productive if you are writing to your next riff or writing from the riff beforehand instead of just going like, here's two things that we stuck next to each other.
Absolutely. I think that this has been a great conversation, and I think that this is a great note to end on. This little bit of advice. You know, take it with a grain of salt if you want, or, you know, make it rules to live by. I don't give a shit either way.
Doesn't change anything.
This has been the Fresh Finds Podcast, the show about listening to new music with good people.